Okay, looks like we stopped climbing in attendees, so we'll go ahead and get started. My name is Kara Mills. For those who don't know me, I'm the director of our host relations team, and I'm joined today by Jamie Fisher, who's the senior manager on our host relations team, and Asina Thixon, who's our VP of Government Affairs and Advocacy. And we're really thankful that you've carved out the time today to hear from us at CIEE on some of our program updates and some of our bigger picture, larger initiatives as we start to grow back and truly feel like we're in recovery and rebuild mode from the pandemic. So thank you very much for joining us. A couple of housekeeping items before I jump into the agenda and into the meat of our presentation. The functionality in Zoom for Q&A should be turned on. So we'll answer questions at the end of our presentation, but feel free to pop any questions in the Q&A box if things come up, or if you're more comfortable, we'll be also looking at the chat functionality too. So either one works, and we will work to answer your questions at the end of our presentation. Today's agenda, we are going to pull back to first the 70,000 foot view. As we've rebuilt, we have found that CIEE looks different. Our team looks different. We have new staff, and likewise, many of your businesses have welcomed new staff. So we wanted to take a little bit of time briefly this afternoon to talk about who CIE is, what the Bridge USA programming is, before then really diving into our program updates, specific to what that means for your 2023 programming this coming summer. And then we want to spend more time on our really big initiative that we're excited about, which is bringing back our advocacy initiatives through Asina's team now, and what our work is there, and asking you to join us in that before wrapping it up on next steps of what your focus is in the next several weeks as we continue to hire for you. We did invite a larger group of business organizations and summer camps this year. So you may be joining us and have not yet finalized your summer hiring. If that's the case, we'll be giving contact information a little bit later on in this presentation. But if you're sitting here and maybe have some self-placed participants through CIEE, either camp counselors or on the summer work travel program, or have yet not had a phone call with CIEE about your summer hiring, you are welcome to follow up with us directly after this call, and we look forward to talking to you in the coming days or week. Briefly, who CIEE is. I've been with CIEE for the last 15 years. I'm based out of Colorado, but CIEE is actually celebrating and just celebrated our 75th birthday. We are a not-for-profit cultural exchange organization, and we do a full scope of cultural exchange programs. Our Bridge USA programming is one piece of our programming at CIEE. And the Bridge USA programming has been for 50 years. And when I refer to Bridge USA, I'm talking specifically about our summer work travel, our camp counselor, and as Jamie will share, some of the other J1 designation under the Bridge USA programming. We are mission driven, and we'll share some of the mission work that we're doing in a few slides from now. And ultimately, we really are focused on our participant quality experience and the customer service that we bring to all of our stakeholders, including hosts like yourselves. As I said, CIEE runs programming and cultural exchange programming, not just for international summer work travel participants and Camp Exchange USA participants. We also run inbound programs through Bridge USA J1 programming, such as high school abroad, where international high school students travel to the United States, interns, trainees, research scholars. So every year we bring about 30,000 international participants into the United States on our programs. And we also send about 15,000 participants outbound on high school, college exchange, graduate teach programs outside of the United States. So our cultural exchange, our public diplomacy footprint each year is large, and having this wide breadth of as an organization allows us to do many different things in reaching our mission and people-to-people connections, mutual understanding, and cultural exchange. I'm going to hand it over to Jamie to dial more into Bridge USA and our program updates. So thank you, Jamie.
Thanks, Kara. As Kara mentioned, definitely want to give the full background and a little bit of the kind of 70,000 foot view, taking it a step back. The programs that we're talking about today really come out of the Fulbright-Hays Act of 1961, and that act was established to increase mutual understanding between people of the United States and the people of other countries by means of educational and cultural exchanges. And as Kara mentioned, out of the Fulbright-Hays Act, there are many visa designations that came out of that program. We're going to talk a little bit further about 2 of them, but there are 16 visa designations ranging from high school students to visiting professors and, of course, summer work travel and camp counselors that we'll talk about further today. These programs sit under the Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs at the State Department. During any pre-pandemic years, the programs have the potential of 300,000 participants from around the globe, all sponsors, coming on these programs. And this is definitely what we are working very hard to get back to as we grow these programs back. All programs involve a host, whether it's a U.S. host, so schools, families, employers, making these true people-to-people exchange programs. There are hundreds of sponsors from universities to exchange organizations like CIEE that help make these programs possible. And that really, talking about all of the different stakeholders of this program, that really drills down into why public diplomacy is so important. There are, as we mentioned, up to 300,000 participants, a massive number of Bridge USA alum around the world, and we're going to talk a little bit more about public diplomacy in future slides, but really important to keep a strong focus on public diplomacy to keep these programs strong and growing. So today we're going to talk specifically, those of you on the call are working directly with summer work travel or camp counselor programs. These are 2 programs administered by CIEE as a program sponsor. So summer work travel involves university students who work in the United States at seasonal businesses during their summer break, whether that be during our traditional summer or our traditional winter. They're able to work up to 4 months in the United States. We have 3 seasons, winter, spring, and summer. They have up to 1 month of travel after their work period has ended. There are nearly 100,000 participants, and that was a 2022 number for all sponsors. So definitely a huge impact this program can have each season. And then as you look back at former seasons, just the number of participants that can be impacted by these programs. And then camp counselor, these participants work as counselors at U.S. summer camps. Their programs usually range between May and August. They have a minimum of 3 weeks and a maximum of 4 months, with up to 1 month of travel after the program. And in 2022, there were more than 20,000 participants on the program for all sponsors. So the process for hiring is definitely a 9 to 10 month process. We wanted to put this slide up to kind of give you an idea of where we are in the process right now. For both summer work travel and for camp counselor, we start our planning as early as August, early September. So some of you, we may have had a call with early on in the season, all the way to right now. We are in the middle of our busiest hiring portion of the year. So our busiest hiring time frame for the summer, for the upcoming summer, is February through April. So we're right in the thick of it, being almost at the end of February. Typically, we see March and early April as being our busiest times for recruitment, with a goal of having participant arrivals in the early summer. So, Kara mentioned earlier that some of you on this call may be new to your role, or, working with CIEE to kind of get your hiring strategy going. There is still time if you're finalizing your hiring strategy. So if you're not already in contact with someone directly from CIEE and need to finalize, please email us at hire@ciee.org for summer work travel, or at camp@ciee.org for camp counselor, to tell us a little bit about yourself, tell us about your program offering, positions that you're looking to fill, because we are right now in the thick of it, and these are the kind of final weeks to get in, and the really the time when we're doing our primary recruitment. So we want to take some time to talk a little bit about program updates. Some of you may know that effective February 13th, Deputy Assistant Secretary, or DAS, as we often say, Nicole Elcon, it transitioned to ECA's Office of Professional and Cultural Exchanges under the Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs. And with that, with her transitioning into this new role, we have an acting DAS, Karen Ward, the director of the Office of Private and Sector Exchange designation. She's serving as acting DAS for the Office of Private Sector Exchange, and plans to rotate the acting duties among Bridge USA office directors in the future. CIEE has a very strong relationship and longstanding relationship with Karen Ward, as we did establish a strong relationship with Nicole Elcon as well. Karen has a very long track record of leadership, a vision for the future of Bridge USA, so we see this as being a very seamless transition. DAS Elcon made some really great and significant contributions to the Bridge USA community, and we absolutely thank her for her leadership and her dedication. We know that specific to CIEE, she really jumped in with our events from this summer at some Bridge USA leadership events and meeting some of our host employers. I know some of you on this call have met DAS Elcon during her time in the role. So we really thank her for her leadership, and we saw a level of warmth and accessibility with her in that role. The department is seeking a senior foreign service officer to replace DAS Elcon, and we do feel that, you know, focusing on this role will help with that type of expertise, will help us as we kind of bridge communication between the exchange visitor program stakeholders and embassies, overseas partners, and foreign governments. We also know that Secretary of State Antony Blinken is a strong supporter of these programs, so we do not see this transition negatively impacting the future of the programs, but rather being a strong and smooth transition given the relationships that we currently have with the Department of State. So talking a little bit about visas and consular affairs, appointments have started for the upcoming summer, and we are already seeing very successful rates and results. We saw this past winter 2022-23 program a huge indicator that visa results have stabilized, and we had very strong results for this past winter. We are closely monitoring updates from our International Representative Network and from the Department of State, and we'll definitely be in communication if we foresee any upcoming issues. But right now, things are looking very good for the summer ahead. One strength that I will note that came out of DAS Elcon in her role was bridging the gap of communication with consular affairs and really giving ECA a direct line to address embassy issues. And we see that continuing with the Department of State looking for a senior foreign service officer to replace her. As I mentioned, results are looking strong, and so you will start to receive visa approval notification emails from CIEE. That being said, we always encourage you to be in touch with your participants, to start sending welcome emails and asking for results from them, because they're often your best resource and they may tell you first as soon as they receive a positive visa approval. With the program strengthening as we come out of the pandemic, we're really excited that we are able to really focus our attention again on pushing forward our mission, as Kara mentioned earlier. We have some amazing programs that we run and that we're continuing to build upon, that we do on top of sponsoring Summer Work Travel and Camp Exchange USA. 3 programs that we'd like to highlight related to seasonal exchanges are the Ambassador Fund Scholarship Program, the Young Civic Leadership Summit, and the Bridge USA Leadership Development Program. So if you take a look at the first photo for the Ambassador Fund Scholarship Program, this is a new scholarship that's sponsored by ECA. CIEE, in collaboration with InterExchange, brought young people from warring countries together for a 3-day seminar to discuss the power of storytelling and working through misinformation. Our team is currently reviewing 1,051 scholarship applications for the second program year. So really excited to be bringing that program back for a second year. And pictured here are scholarship recipients from Armenia, Azerbaijan, Bulgaria, and Georgia, with Das Nicole Elkan there on the left. As I mentioned, she was a huge champion for our programs and very accessible. The photo in the middle is from Ambassador Johnny and Mrs. Angie Young Civic Leadership Summit, or we often call YCLS. This photo is 40 participants from 26 different countries represented in this past August of 2022. So it was our little mini UN that we had. It was 3 days of intercultural learning and leadership training. Das Elkan and Kevin Saba were present, as well as Angie Young, Jim Pello, and 3 CIE board members. This was CIE funded, so we are looking forward to our 9th seminar coming up in August 2023. And then the third photo that you see featured here is the Bridge USA Leadership and Development Program. We were awarded by the Department of State to conduct a series of seminars for 150 to 200 Bridge USA participants across all visa categories, ranging from alien physicians to high school students, au pair, all from various organizations. This was contingent largely based upon the YCLS workshops that we had been running, and we used a lot of that material, as well as invited speakers depending on the specifics for each cohort. We've so far completed 4 of these seminars with very successful rates. Das Nicole Elkan has been present in each event, learning from the participants about their programs, as well as hearing about the content that they're learning during the seminars. And so what these 3 programs really show is that our relationship with the Department of State is strong, our focus on mission is strong, and everything that we've done to nurture relationships with host employers and the Department of State pre-pandemic and during the pandemic and beyond has really helped us continue to be a leader in this type of programming as we move our mission forward. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kara to talk a little bit more about advocacy and why all of this matters.
Thank you, Jamie, and well said. And it's really rewarding to start doing this, doing some of this mission work again after a couple of years of program uncertainty. And as I see some of these Q&A or questions coming in, which we'll address at the end, definitely understand a lot of focus still on visas and whatnot, where we have felt that pain in the last couple of years. So we'll be addressing that at the end for sure. And our goal today is to kind of share how it all ties into getting these participants here, which is the next talking point, and teeing up Aseneth on the work that she has been doing with her team. But Bridge USA programs widely are well accepted, well supported, bipartisan support, and have mainly been a non-political program, right? It was designed in 1961 to be a way to bridge nations, bridge people, at very little cost or no cost to U.S. government. And, as we've gone through various administrations or times of political challenges of it, focusing on those public diplomacy relationships or those economic impacts in a positive way to your communities, your businesses, have really been a focus and something that we've educated on. That said, in recent years, and one thing I wanted to just highlight and give a very brief history lesson is there have been reasons that this program has become politicized. And that is why we continue to advocate and why advocacy matters. And we'll explain why Asenath has the role that she has and the work that her team is doing. But very briefly, up until really the start of these programs to 2011, they weren't challenged in any sort of political terms. There was limited oversight and had wide bipartisan support. In August 2011, there was a situation where participants walked out on a job, had unfavorable work conditions, and this made national headlines. And at the time, Secretary of State Hillary Clinton said, all right, we need to look at these programs, keep it, but cap it. And fix it. And at that point, State Department took a more careful look at these programs and released interim final rules and a set of regulations of how to better administer these programs and how those sponsors who are administering those programs and then all the stakeholders that they work with should be following those rules. 2011 was a pivotal time. We could have lost this program, and with the support of the then Secretary of State plus advocacy, these programs, we had an opportunity to improve, and much has changed in the last decade in those improvements. But continuously on the timeline, you can see that the program has been challenged more recently. So 2013, there was immigration reform legislation that looped in Bridge USA programming in anti-trafficking in an anti-trafficking Senate immigration bill, advocacy and your voices as hosts, the communities that we got involved, that really helped remove that language from the bill as we educated lawmakers on the importance of these programs and separating them from the concerns in this immigration bill. Most recently, under the former Trump administration, in 2017, there was an executive order known as BAHA, Buy American, Hire American. In that executive order, it proposed to eliminate 5 Bridge USA programs. So fully eliminating these Bridge USA programs that your businesses have relied on. We took an approach with media. We took an approach with elected officials. And we relied really, really heavily on support and voices of host organizations, summer camps, U.S. businesses, along with member associations, chambers, to move the needle, to educate and get the word out, really use the power of your voice on why these programs matter. And as a result, we didn't see this executive order come to fruition and impact programming. And then certainly, as Jamie talked about, through the pandemic, COVID-19 pandemic, we've been met with various challenges, and advocacy and the power of your voice has again been something that has helped move that needle into making us in a more stabilized environment that we are today. So, travel bans, vaccination requirements early on in the pandemic, and then, the lasting impact of embassy closures and limitations to visa appointments. And today, I want to stress that we're in a really healthy place. We have some calm winds ahead of us. But, as I kick this over to Asenath, the takeaway from this slide is that we don't know when we may be faced with any new challenges or what those new challenges would be. We would all love that crystal ball. But Asenath is going to explain some of the project and work and investments we're making now so that we are prepared for the next challenge and continue to keep these programs proactively in a healthy spotlight. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to you, Asenath.
Yeah, great. It's great to see all of you, or at least just to be introduced. And to connect with what Kara and Jamie have said about Bridge and the program and the support that we have from from the Department of State, as well as the strong relationship we have that allows us to just further expand and grow with our partnerships with you guys, and really connecting and relating to the embassies, ambassadors, and foreign posts. So as a result of the history that you were just told about from Kara that has occurred within the Bridge USA program, we partnered with another sponsor to create the Coalition for American Public Diplomacy and Leadership. And with that partnership, we were able to really hone in on the Bridge USA program in order to grow our advocacy spotlight, and to be sure that should any of these challenges occur again, that we would have a strong advocacy group that can talk to elected officials, that can really stress the importance of the program, the exchange component, the public diplomacy component, and why we need to keep these programs, and the efforts that it requires for this program to be strong. And so you'll see that we're developing this grassroots advocacy network, which we're calling the Supporters Network. And we're also sharing this message with you guys, and then with congressional members. So we're using 3 pillars: education of Congress and Post, which means that I'm connecting with lots of congressional members and their staff, just to let them know what Bridge USA is, because of course we had an election in 2022. So there are some new members who are not familiar with the program. There are some members who have lots of questions, mostly about how the program works. And then we have the Foreign Post, where we also want to make sure that they understand why students are coming to them for visas to come to the States, and better understand what the program does in the public diplomacy component that is hugely important to all involved too. So we also want to share the outcomes and make sure that best practices are being shared among the group, as well as with congressional members, so that they understand that their efforts to, I guess you could say, protect the culture of America, and also to welcome those who are not from the States with open arms, that we're all doing everything we can to share best practices and make sure we're doing the very best we can to the letter of the regulation and beyond. And then also alleviating any uncertainties, congressionally or otherwise, that could come up as a result of different challenges, that Kara mentioned, or others that could come up that we just wouldn't expect. And so, as I was saying, the Supporters Network is here to help engage the same congressional members, the White House, governors, just people who really need to know more, states and cities that are impacted by having our students from the Bridge USA program in those areas, just making sure they understand what your work is, what you're doing, how much this cultural exchange really means to us all, and where that really puts us on the map for public diplomacy and in supporting the Fulbright-Hays Act. So we are, at this time, I do not and have not seen any legislative or regulatory threats. Again, from my conversations with congressional members, it really is about education. The questions can be extremely basic, to pretty much what is this and where are the students coming from? And then when they're here, where do they go? How long do they stay? What are they doing? To some other foreign relations, foreign affairs questions that are a little outside of my knowledge base, to say the least, but more importantly, would require the State Department to kind of move in and have some of those conversations to help these elected officials better understand exactly what the program is, from point A overseas to point B over here, and all of the in-betweens. I think we all could imagine this. If you just don't quite understand how the process works, you can have lots of questions that that are hard to answer, because every country is different, and every method of visa appointments and approvals are a little different. So we just have to essentially keep up the good work of communicating and letting congressional members know that they have advocates, supporters, businesses who are hosting these students and who are utilizing their efforts, if you will, to support local businesses, to support the idea of public diplomacy, and also to exchange and cultural activities. And all of this is to elevate the Bridge USA program and to make sure that should there be threats, should someone decide that a particular regulation, or more specifically some portion of the Fulbright-Hays Act should be changed, there's a group that says, hey, if you do this, this is what will happen. Not just CIEE, not just other sponsors, but the people who are actually the businesses who are actually utilizing this program would be able to step up and say, we have an office or a location in your state or your city, and this is how meaningful the program is to us, and this is what it brings. And we just want to make sure that you understand, should there be any changes, this is what could happen. Or more importantly, this is what that change looks like should you actually approve it. And as we all know, congressional members are very ready and willing to hear what we all have to say, and typically make good decisions. And in most cases I would think, move it over to the State Department to really work through regulations. And that's what we've seen, is that there's more regulatory conversations and less knee-jerk reaction to actually trying to change the law itself.
Thank you, Asenath. It's super helpful and sets the stage of, I think really, I should actually read one of the questions or comments that came in while you were speaking. And thank you for the individual who said, this is an amazing coalition. And I think it really is, because we're capturing and harnessing the power of your voices. And this is truly a grassroots coalition that allows, elected officials and members of Congress to understand directly from their constituents. So as sponsors, we can certainly talk to elected officials, but it's really the backing of you in your communities and as constituents that is going to help move the needle and being proactive in building this coalition and in building this group of supporters, so that if we do have issues and we do need to raise a red flag or sound the alarm bells, we're already there with this group of supporters. And, our goal, as you sign on, you're going to hear from us occasionally, and Asenath and her team will be in touch with you so that you feel informed, but not overwhelmed by the information. And then when we have a situation that we may need to put a fire out, we're already there to do so. So Jamie's going to drop in the chat function, this link here, but our ask is for you to join if you haven't already. Some of you already have, but join our supporters network if you follow this link up on the PowerPoint and what was going into the chat. Now, it will take just a moment for you to put your individual name, but then business details in. And then as signing up, you would be representing your business or summer camp as a supporter. And we have been having similar conversations. So you may have seen things already with local chambers of commerce, with business associations as well. So these are conversations that we're having also with network, probably many others in your network. And so if this isn't the first time you've heard about it, thanks for your support and consideration. And our last slide is just some other next steps housekeeping before we will then start tackling questions.
All right. Thanks, Kara. So talking, kind of switching gears a little bit on some best practices as we get closer and closer to the summer ahead. Definitely, as you're seeing hires being made, or maybe you're making the hires, it's very important to communicate with your participants. The participants are looking forward to joining you this summer. So right now is the time to really establish rapport with them, let them know what you need from them or what they should expect prior to traveling, communicate any travel or arrival details that you have to get to your specific location, and then go directly to the source. As I mentioned on an earlier slide, we will communicate visa updates as we receive them, but often the participants have that information right away and readily available. So creating that open line of communication with participants is really critical as you're preparing for the summer ahead. And then we also ask that you continue to communicate with CIEE. So please watch your emails for CIEE notifications and updates, such as if you're utilizing the Connect hiring service, those Connect hiring service alerts. Watch for weekly emails when we have a CIEE recruit hire that's been made. We'll be sending out, as I mentioned, visa approval emails, and then also notifying you of program cancellations. And please do let us know if you receive a program cancellation and you'd like us to, try to fill that position with another hire. We want to hear that from you so that we can very quickly keep the process moving and find another candidate to fill that role. And then, as I noted earlier on the call, be in contact with us. If it's summer work travel, utilize hire@ciee.org unless you're working with someone specifically on our team. And then for camp, it's camp@ciee.org. Let us know if you are still looking to finalize your hiring strategy and want to, finalize those details. We'll ask you questions on your specific program that you're offering. We'll ask you to tell us a little bit about yourself. And then also please let us know if you have any changes to your job requirements as the season continues, changes to your job details, such as a pay rate change or housing cost change. Also let us know if anything changes to your hiring needs, such as an increase or reduction in the participant numbers that you're looking for the summer ahead. And then with that, I'm going to, yes.
Yep. I was going to just answer a couple of the housekeeping questions. And then I think I have some questions already grouped in terms of hiring, visas, in country. So we'll do our best to get through some of these questions that have come through. Short, easy question to answer is yes, we are recording this session. So we will be sending out a link to the recording, and also happy to host this deck, PDF form of the deck in our host resource center. So we'll be following up with an email of how to find that information for everyone. The other kind of housekeeping question is where is the link that you mentioned? So the supporter link is now dropped into the chat. And again, in our follow-up email, if you don't see it in the chat function, we're happy to we'll include it in our follow-up email. In terms of hiring, there's one person right now asking a question about still being short in hiring. How do we have a conversation with CIE representative about finishing their hiring? So 2 notes on that is that right now hiring's still ongoing. We will be hiring, as we shared. The volume of our hiring still to happen in the rest of this month, March, and into early April. But really hiring will go on until May, so sit tight. But that said, taking a look at what your requirements are is not a bad time at this time of year. So maybe you signed on back in the fall and you're really hoping for early May arrivals or mid-May arrivals. And if you were to push that start date back into June, that may open you up for several more sending countries. And so if you want to have that conversation with us, we call it internally loosening the screws. If you want to have the conversation with us and take another look of what we might have talked about on plan A or plan B, and you're ready to talk plan C, shoot us an email. So for work and travel, that's at hire@cie.org. For the camp program, that's camp@cie.org. And we are happy to have those conversations with you. Jamie, I'm going to fire off visa questions for you, and I'm happy to jump in and answer, but I'm also, so I can do the Q&A at the same time and fire off questions. So We have one question about, are there any countries that are having issues or delays or limited number of visas?
As of right now, and again, it's still a little too early to know, but right now we do not have specific delays that we know of. But as I mentioned earlier, we are closely monitoring, and also, as we start to see any kind of delays or limited appointments, are in the background, jumping in and communicating with the Department of State on whether there's anything we can do to address those, and also working with our international representatives. So the short answer is right now, no, but we will definitely, as we always have, keep you posted if we start to see a sending country that we have concerns with.
Great. And then a question, kind of trend or specific, but a higher rate of rejection for visas for lack of ties to the home country, without really feeling like there's a justification for it. Ability to challenge or respond to these decisions are limited. What kind of steps can be taken, or how can we help mitigate those challenges that we're seeing?
I would, without just taking a look at this question, not certain who submitted the question and which specific sending country they're speaking to, I would say reach out to CIEE and let us know what specifics you're hearing or what you have specifically, so that because as we know, we're working with so many different sending countries and so many different, representatives and embassy posts. As many specifics as possible, if you're starting to see a trend, will definitely help us, and we can take that information to our team members that work directly with our international representatives. And of course, if it seems like a larger issue that we need to escalate to the Department of State, we'll be taking those as well. But I would say, let us know what specifics you're hearing. You can send it to, if you have one of our email addresses, or even those general hire@ciee.org or camp@ciee.org, as soon as you learn of something like that, and we can further escalate. Anything to add on that, Kara?
No, I mean, I think a lot of times as the host, you get more details of a participant's experience at the embassy than we do, or sometimes even an international representative does. So if something feels off, sharing those details with us, we can redirect that feedback to the international representative, or if we need to take up communications directly with the post. We are at the mercy of who the post is and those visa decisions, but certainly, where we see trends or challenges, we're happy to leverage our relationships or international representatives' relationships to help further educate, or see if there's something we can do if participants return for a second interview to provide more supporting documentation that may change the initial outcome. Got some questions about approval ratings percentages for participants from specific questions, and I can take this, and just right now it's too soon to know. We are watching it. I will say certainly across the board, pre-pandemic, we really budgeted for about a 90% approval rating for the summer work travel program. It's higher for camp, with sending countries having typically higher visa approvals. With growing back from the pandemic, we hope that we're going to get returned to that average of 10%. That was the indication that we really saw this winter, but certainly we're adding more sending countries for summer to the mix than our winter programming is. There are certainly countries that we will see below and well below that threshold. And that's one thing that our team is actually starting to do. So for the person who asked this question, if we're seeing that you have a lot of hires, maybe from countries that tend to have higher denials, in the coming weeks, our team does plan to reach out to you and kind of get a sense of where you are feeling with your hiring, and if you would feel better if we padded your numbers with a few more participants to kind of make up for potentially higher denials. I will say that's with a caveat that if everybody gets their visa, you have space, working hours, and beds to accommodate everyone, because we don't want that to turn into program and job cancellations. But that's something that certainly we understand concerns and want to proactively educate hosts about where there may have a higher risk.
Kara,
yeah,
with
ahead,
that,
Jeannie.
I can jump in on a specific sending country question that I see here, and a very good question. Are there any updates regarding potential delays in students arriving from Turkey due to the earthquakes? As of right now, the short answer to that is no. The majority of our participants that are specific to CIEE coming on the programs are not in the areas that are impacted by the earthquakes. So as of right now, the short answer is no. That being said, that's where we continue to, work with the Department of State and work with our international representative network to monitor this, to see if there are any, while not directly impacted, delays for travel. Will there be any delays because of pushed back university dates or something like that to accommodate for, participants that might be impacted? So that short answer is no, but something that we are closely watching.
Thanks, Jamie. And then to tag on to that, are there any other countries that are more prohibitive in hiring than others? Do you want to tackle that as well? Or do you want?
Apologies. Could you say that one more time, Kara?
Are there any countries that are more prohibitive in hiring than others?
That again, every sending country is a little bit different, and I would say, as far as being prohibitive, it really more what we take a look at is program interest. So I would say that there are, some sending countries that have a larger program interest than others. We also know, as a result of thinking back to Kara's slide that she put up with some of the different, things that have happened with the program throughout the years. Shortly after the situation that happened in 2011, the Department of State did issue or put together a set of sending country dates for all sending countries that are utilizing the program. So, all sending countries have an earliest start date and a latest start date that participants have to work within. And therefore, some sending countries have a much wider range than others that could cause some limitations for the hiring needs that you're looking for. So again, it really kind of depends on each specific sending country. So if you have a really specific question on a specific country, we'd be happy to answer those questions. But in general, it more has to do with program interest, date requirements. If there were still any remaining travel bans, which good thing we're through most of that with the pandemic related travel bans and visa restrictions that we've had over the last couple of years.
Perfect. I'm going to bounce back to a couple housekeeping questions, rounding out the visa conversation. Jamie mentioned visa approval emails. Is this going to just summer work and travel hosts or also camp? And I can take that. We started doing that with summer work and travel hosts last year, or maybe 2 years ago. Camp, Louisa, for those who know, Louisa has it in the works to start doing that with Camp Counselor. We know for the camp program, you are much more intimately connected to your counselors, so usually hear from them first. We rely on counselors and work and travel participants to input this information directly into their beacon. We know that participants are not always giving us that information as quickly as maybe they're shooting you a WhatsApp message that they got their visa. So yes, for camp, we are going to begin doing that in the coming weeks. But again, just stressing that this information, we rely on participants, just like you're relying on participants to give you the information. So please know that sometimes it comes piecemeal because participants need to self-report this. The other housekeeping question before I go to kind of program and in country, Jamie, I wanted to hit was about our ability to pull rosters. And how can you see all of your rosters? And unfortunately, right now, our IT piece is under more major renovations in terms of getting you a better way to report on rosters. And as a result, we don't anticipate that functionality that is very, very helpful to you and others that have access to the host portal will be available for this coming summer season. We actually are making some adjustments in our staffing to be able to meet your demands. So demands as in if you email hire@ci.org for work and travel or camp@ci.org. Camp doesn't have the same issue. You have more easier ways to see your participants. But any questions on your hires or your roster, please email us. And I hope within the coming weeks, we'll be able to really do same day turnaround to pull that information that you're looking for in a quicker way. We know that that's challenging when you want to look at your hires and are relying on a response from us. And we appreciate patience on that. And, please reach out to us and we'll do our best to get that to you as soon as possible. Other questions? Yeah, go ahead, Jamie.
Oh, I was just going to jump in while we're sort of talking about some housekeeping items. I see a question here. There are some participants that are looking for information on how to contact CIEE to be a candidate. Where do we tell them to go? If you go to the CIEE.org website, it's actually a really great and intuitive where the participants say, I am a college student looking to work in the United States, and it will take them to our website and give them access, and it will actually have a drop down with sending countries where they will select their sending country and can find the international representatives that we work with in their specific sending country. So the first step for anyone who's interested in coming on one of our programs is to go to the CIE website.
Great. We also have the question, I'm assuming this is coming from a camp host, but feel free to type in here if I'm incorrect. Is there a maximum age for direct placements? For camp, no. If you have questions, that direct applicant should be going through a CIE representative who's going to be screening them and making sure that they are a fit for the program. But we don't have a max age for camp. It's not the university requirements. For summer work travel, our max age is 30 to travel. And again, with summer work travel, it's a requirement to be a current and active university participant. Jamie, question on Social Security. Will the student have a Social Security number upon arrival to the United States?
It's a really great question. And in most cases, the answer to that question will be no. The participants will need, unless they're a returning participant and they've been to the United States before on a program similar, they will need to apply for a Social Security card after they have registered with SEVIS. And the way that they will register with SEVIS is by logging into their CIEE Beacon account once they've arrived at your location and filling out the information that they've arrived. They will get a notification that that's gone through. We do recommend giving it a few days between registering in SEVIS and getting that approval and going to the Social Security office to apply for the Social Security number. A couple of just little tidbits on things that we know, kind of best practices. We do recommend that all of you, especially if this is maybe your first time back or you're new to your organization, that you reach out to your local Social Security office and establish a relationship with that office and determine exactly, every office is a little bit different on their processes, whether you have to book an appointment or you can bring a group of participants in at one time. So we recommend establishing that line of communication with them as early as now so that you're prepared for the summer ahead. Participants are able to begin working at your location before they have received their Social Security number. And this number does take time to be mailed to them. So we recommend that you work with them and work with the local Social Security office to make sure that addresses that are being given are good addresses, that there aren't PO boxes, because that can often delay a card. They're giving their full name that's reflective on their passport. Just anything that you can do to help them make that process as smooth as possible.
Great. And then we have three more questions. I'm going to take the specific to Margaret question, and then we have two more questions that definitely hit kind of more in-country or arrival preparation, and we'll hit those surface level answers. But I want to say that this is not our only webinar. I meant to say at the start of this, we try to have these periodic conversations and check-ins, and probably the next time we meet, pending anything unexpected happening, the next time we meet will be prior to the summer. We'll be inviting you to a summer kickoff webinar where we will be going into more details on some of these questions. But the market question I wanted to answer, we have had several applications from Russian students. Do you have any indication that the Ukrainian war will impact approvals for Russian students? And I can say we've definitely lowered our volume from Russia as a reality of what's happening right now in Europe. But that said, our participants that are wanting to travel from Russia, and this is speaks to what an important place this program has right now in that tool of public diplomacy. So participants that are able to come, we're very supportive of it, and participants have been going to neighboring embassies outside of Russia for visa interviews, and to date have been relatively successful. And so I would say, if you have Russian participants, Ukrainian participants alike, where there's challenges and obstacles to getting visas, those participants that are able to travel to other embassies and get those visas, definitely welcoming them with open arms, because you really are playing a really important role in kind of the public diplomacy and hopefully, future of geopolitical relations throughout the world with this. And we want to keep the doors open for those participants that are able to come. But certainly, yes, the volume of participants from those countries has been significantly impacted with the conflict right now. Other question, how early can participants travel to the US before starting their program, Jamie?
So CIEE's policy is that participants should not travel any more than 5 days before the start of their program to the United States. And that they do have the 30-day travel period at the end of their program. So we encourage them to utilize that time to do any kind of travel and tourism that they're going to do on the program. But 5 days prior, and then oftentimes they may come to your location a day or two prior. So that's really where I recommend that if you have any specific arrival details or arrival, methods of transportation, the day that you want them to arrive, the earliest date that they can check into housing, those types of details are really important to communicate to participants before they arrive. As we know that once they arrive and they register in CVIS, that kind of starts their process for CVIS, their job, for applying for Social Security.
Great. And then the last question is kind of on the job. What happens if a participant's not a good fit for the business, is having issues? And, I'm going to answer this. And again, we'll dive much more into this in our summer kickoff webinar. And then certainly if you find yourself in this situation, we're going to be having a conversation with you and really putting an individual plan in place. We know, just like domestic employees, not everybody works out. What we ask is really allowing, doing your due diligence and mediation and performance, process, et cetera, documenting concerns. And unless something is egregious that you are not able, you need to terminate a participant on the spot, we really ask you to use CIEE to help mediate issues so that we have an opportunity to turn things around. So you're meeting a lot of people from our host relations team, but we have an entire team of participant services where their job is really talking to participants and helping them navigate issues. And as we go through our summer kickoff, we'll talk about tips for managing international participants, overcoming cultural shock, and then certainly navigating when challenges do come up. So that hits all our questions. I do want to say that Asina, if you didn't see it, gave a big shout out that we are seeing sign-ons come in. So thank you. We also have questions about, one more question, early departure. So that's a great question. When a participant leaves their job early, so participants have a 30-day grace period, which is their 30-day travel period. That begins at the end of their job. If for some reason they leave their job early and it's in an arranged way that doesn't have negative implications, that the visa sponsor CIA decides to shorten their program or end their program early, that 30-day travel period commences on their the day after their last day of work. So if a participant works for you for a month instead of 3 months, that doesn't mean that they get 3 months of travel. They get 30 days of travel from the time that their job ends. And again, those are things that we'll certainly share during our summer kickoff, and then but usually share in writing and reminders as we think about towards the end of the season. So that's a great question as well. So, any other questions that you have or anything that comes up, please don't hesitate to contact us. A huge thank you for joining us. I know that we took the full hour, so for the people that stuck through it, appreciate it. And we'll definitely make a recording available in the next couple of days. And share that as well if there's others that you want to share it with. So thank you so much for your time today.